Hello, everyone, and welcome to New Consciousness Review. I'm Miriam Knight, and our guest today is Nick Ortner. Nick is the creator and executive producer of the hit documentary film, The Tapping Solution. He also produces the annual worldwide online event, the Tapping World Summit, which has been attended by over 500,000 people. Nick presents breakthrough live tapping sessions around the world, and today we're going to talk about his book, The Tapping Solution, a revolutionary system for stress-free living. Welcome, Nick. I'm delighted you could join us.
Oh, Miriam, thanks so much for having me on. Nick,
tell us, what is this mystery tapping technique that's getting such rapid and really impressive results?
Yeah, absolutely. So tapping, the tapping solution, or EFT, is the form of tapping that I do. That stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. But we generally call it tapping because we are literally tapping on these endpoints of meridians on our body. And I like to describe it as a combination of ancient Chinese acupressure or acupuncture, that's the physical tapping component, and modern psychology. Because as we tap on these meridian endpoints of our body, we say certain statements, we focus on our challenge, on what's bothering us, on what's getting in the way. And it's a technique that I personally discovered for myself 10 years ago. Thought it was strange as can be when I found it, and still today sometimes laugh when I wake up in the morning and say, I do what every day? I do this tapping thing. But as you know, and literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people around the world are finding, it's incredibly effective on a huge variety of issues.
What led you to be open to it, Nick? Not everybody believes in tapping away your problems.
Yeah, well, I've always been a curious mind and interested in tools that I could use to improve my life. And, whether it be listening to Tony Robbins in high school and college and, learning from him, and then Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay. I've just always been into self-help and personal development. And I kept hearing about this tapping tool again and again. And from a lot of the people that I was following, the people that I was learning from, they would kind of mention offhand, oh, you should try EFT. And if you're stuck with limiting beliefs and you can't clear them, or if you're trying to make a change happen and it doesn't seem to work, try this tapping thing. And I heard it in enough places. It's one of those things that when the universe puts it in front of you again and again and again, you say, okay, I'm going to pay attention. So I did, and one of my first experiences, I remember, it was pretty simple, but it was pretty profound. I had woken up one morning with some neck pain, and it's from sleeping wrong, like a crick in your neck, and it's not a big deal, but it hurts, and it's uncomfortable, and it can last a day or 2 days or 3 days. And I kept hearing about how tapping works for pain. So I said, all right, let me give this a shot. And I looked it up online, and I went over the instructions and tried to figure out how to do it. It's a little complicated the first time when you don't know what you're doing, but soon enough it's simple. And sure enough, I did a couple of rounds of tapping, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and the pain just released. It went away. And, that was a great result as it was for have the pain go away, but it also made me start thinking, if I can change this that quickly, something that I thought was going to take a long time to go away, or there's nothing I could do about it, if I could change that quickly, what else could I change in my life? So I spent the last decade, in various forms of studying the technique, being trained in it, working with people on it, and eventually producing a documentary film about it, and then the book, which is my last sort of project in this technique.
Well, your most recent, anyway.
You are correct, to be accurate. I'm already working on my second book, so it is my most recent.
So where did this technique originate?
It's a great question. It was the beginnings of it, and where the real breakthrough came was with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Roger Callahan. And it was the late 70s, actually, over 30 years ago. And he was a traditional psychologist and was working with a client by the name of Mary. Now, Mary had a severe water phobia. And when I say severe, I mean severe, not just like I don't like swimming. She didn't like drinking water. She didn't like taking baths. She didn't like showers. She was phobic of water. And obviously it affected the quality of her life in a massive way. And she had been seeing Dr. Callahan for about 1.5 years, doing the traditional therapy, talking about it, doing some exposure therapy, looking at the water bit by bit, trying to calm down around it, trying to find out psychological reasons for the fear, and they just weren't getting anywhere. In fact, the sessions themselves were so stressful for Mary that she would walk away from the sessions with a headache. So it was making it even worse. And then one day, Dr. Callahan was meeting with Mary, and they were sitting outside of his house and looking at the pool in his home. And when Mary was looking at the pool, she commented, when I look at the water, I just get this queasy feeling in the pit of my stomach. It feels like there's butterflies in there. And as it so happened, the night before, Dr. Callahan had been reading about meridians in the body and the endpoints of meridians, and had read that the stomach meridian ends underneath the eye. So really, on a whim, he said, try tapping underneath the eye and see what happens. So Mary tapped underneath the eye a couple of times, and the water phobia cleared, just like that. A lifelong phobia went away in a matter of literally seconds. So as you can imagine, Dr. Callahan was astonished by this turn of events. He's been a traditional psychologist.
Especially after he'd spent 2 years with her.
Well, that's it. And especially after he had one client after another where he just saw mediocre results. And, I think people in those professions generally tend to want to help people, right? And most 99% of them don't want them coming back every week with the same issues. They want to help them. So he had been frustrated. This was a huge breakthrough for Mary and for him. And he proceeded to study the endpoints of meridians in the body and developed a technique called TFT, thought field therapy. The form that I use today and that most of people use is called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. And that was developed by Gary Craig, who was a student of Rogers. And Gary was brilliant in basically taking Rogers' work and simplifying it, adding some simple twist to it to make it easier for people to learn. And that's what I use personally. I learned it from Gary and from other experts around the world, and that's what a lot of people are using today.
So what are the elements of this technique?
Well, I think the best way to describe it is to have a little experience with it. Should we do some tapping together so people really know how it works?
Sure.
Okay. So there's a couple steps, and they're really very basic. The first thing that we want to do is we want to identify what we want to work on. What's our target? I like to focus on first, if this is your first experience, pick what I call your MPI, your most pressing issue. What's the thing that for the last couple of days you keep running through your mind over and over again? What's the stressful project that's coming up that you keep thinking about? If you're experiencing any physical pain in your body, that can be your target. It works incredibly well with physical pain. So if you have back pain or neck pain or a crick in your neck like I had, you can tune in to that as your target. And you want to be as specific as possible on it. You don't want to just say, life is overwhelming me. You want to say, this project that is due in 2 days is really stressing me out because I don't think I can get it done in time, right? You want to really focus in and hone in on the issue. So that's the first thing we do. We pick our target. So pick a pain, pick a stressful issue, pick an emotion. If you're angry at somebody, if you're sad about something. And once you have your issue, I'd like you to give it a number on a 0 to 10 scale in intensity. 10 being most intense. So if you had physical pain and it was really hurting, it could be a 10 or 9 or an 8. And you want to try to pick an issue that's a 5 or higher. So you have your target, what you're working on. You give it a number on a 0 to 10 scale. And then we're going to do some tapping on it. Now, if I was working with you one-on-one or you were tapping by yourself, you would be saying the language that relates to your issue. Since we're doing tapping together, I'm going to use what's called global tapping. So it'll be very general language, but as long as you're focused on your issue, it's going to work just fine for you. And Miriam, will you be my echo as we tap along?
I will be delighted.
Wonderful. So we start by tapping on the side of the hand. It's called the karate chop point, and it's below the pinky, either side of the hand, right on the outside of the hand. You want to take 4 fingers of one hand and tap on the other. It doesn't matter which hand you use.
How far below the pinky?
It's fully below the pinky. So you're actually not tapping on the pinky. You're tapping on the meaty part of the outside of your hand. Above the wrist, below the pinky, right in that space in there.
Got it.
Okay, and just tap continuously and then repeat after me. Even though I have this stress in my body.
Even though I have this stress in my body.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
We're going to do that 2 more times. Even though I have this stress in my body.
Even though I have this stress in my body.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I have this issue.
Even though I have this issue.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
So that's called the setup statement, and now we're going to tap through the points. The first point is the eyebrow point. It's on the inside of the eyebrow, right where the hair ends and it meets the nose. And you can tap on either side, or you can do both sides. The meridians run down both sides of the body. And just tap with 2 fingers inside of the eyebrow and just repeat this issue.
Is it more powerful if you use both fingers?
You know, some people have told me that their anecdotal evidence says it is if you tap down both sides of the body. We just haven't really been able to measure it. So if you have both hands free, then go for it. So just tap inside of the eyebrow, this issue.
This issue.
And now on the side of the eye, again, one side or both sides. It's next to the eye. It's not at the temple, a little further in, right where the face turns on the bone. This issue.
This issue.
Now under the eye, again, one side or both sides, right on the bone. This stressful issue.
This stressful issue.
Now under the nose, with 2 fingers, this stressful issue.
This stressful issue.
Under the mouth, it's above the chin, below the lip, right in that little crease in there, again with 2 fingers, this stressful issue.
This stressful issue.
We have 3 points left. For the collarbone point, if you feel for the 2 little bones of the collarbone, and just go down just an inch, out to each side about an inch, and you can tap with all 10 fingers, both sides of the body, this stressful issue.
This stressful issue.
Now underneath the arm, either side of the body, 3 inches underneath the armpit, it'll be right on the bra line for women, this stressful issue.
This stressful issue.
And the last point where we do look a little bit like monkeys, right at the top of the head, this stressful issue.
This stressful issue.
And then you take a deep breath, and let it go.